Kofi Anku
Good day.
in person.
Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you as well.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. Usually I try and get out here maybe 3-4 times a year, and last year I was only able to come once, but I'm back. So
Excellent.
first time here in Pokuase. First and foremost, congratulations.
Thank you.
Obviously I've seen IE Mensa and everything you did there. And so, in coming here, I already knew the level and quality of the work that you do. So I can't say I'm surprised since I was already familiar, but this is great. Definitely a different neighborhood, different area, different style of home, understanding a different price point that you're working with, but to see it in person is different. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to come by.
Well, thanks for coming through and sharing with the audience. Appreciate it.
Right on. So tell us a little bit about this area, why Pokuase Heights, and how all of this actually came to be.
Sure. So our goal with this development was to come in at a more moderately priced product. Getting a mortgage in this part of the world is pretty challenging. So folks are buying with cash.
Right.
Which is something that Ghanaians in the diaspora are familiar with. But if we're looking at trying to reach a wider African diaspora, particularly with African Americans who are used to buying with finance, to ask someone to pay $200,000 for a house, cash, heavy lift.
Right.
So we're targeting something in the ballpark of 55,000 USD for a fully finished house, 42,000 for a shell. And I think those are numbers that people can swing who are in the diaspora and interested in getting in on the property ladder here in Ghana.
That makes sense. And, I've already had the opportunity to check them out and, be inside and outside of the home, see, the finishing, spacious backyards, and also just the wider surrounding area. For folks who aren't familiar with Pokuase, can you talk a little bit about this neighborhood, about its proximity to, the center city Accra, as well as the Pokuase interchange, and how that's really changing the game for this specific location?
Sure. So Pokuase is a suburb of Accra. So it's basically a 22-kilometer journey from the airport. Similar distance from IE Mensa Park to the airport, but just heading in the direction of Kumasi. So they've just completed a $70 million interchange, which is a game changer. Anytime you have that kind of investment, public investment in the real estate landscape, it has a huge knock-on effect in terms of the price of property in the area. So we're looking at significant appreciation for people that buy in now at Pokuase. And we've already seen the price of land increase significantly.
That's one of the things that I noticed when we were driving over here. I have not seen an interchange like that in Ghana in terms of, the height that all of the different, freeway constructions actually have, as well as just the surrounding area. I saw that there's a lot of development going on here. And, I compare it to in the Bay Area, me being from Oakland, whenever the BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, extends and it creates a new stop, property values in the area subsequently rise. And so just a metaphor, a comparison for folks who may not be as familiar with this specific area. It's the same thing. Picture a new BART stop, or picture the subway in New York City expands to a new area, and now it's more interconnected to the city center.
And for folks in our community, we're always late to the party. Because people know about that kind of public investment years before it even hits the legislature.
Also true.
So from this perspective, it's interesting because things happen slower in Ghana. Again, because everything is cash. It's not the developers who are building are developing with cash. There's not a huge amount of development finance available. So the process in real time happens slower. So you can see the level of investment on the interchange, but then the knock-on effects in terms of development, it takes a little bit longer. So there are opportunities for individual investors to get in.
I see. And like you said earlier too, just building on top of the price point in particular, it is something that's very accessible, right? For me, it's like, especially even for folks who are based in the States who may be looking to relocate, the pandemic, for all of the downsides to it, the upside was really remote work.
Sure.
And the ability to be anywhere in the world, but still to be able to keep a job that may be based in the US or the UK and paying US and UK wages, but to be able to live somewhere else and, still benefit, from that kind of salary. And so, even for myself, one of the reasons why I started coming out here so often was because, well, obviously I do, clothing design and do business out here, but it was because I was afforded the opportunity to come out here more often because now I'm not tied to a specific location
Sure.
or a desk, and I can come out here for a month at a time or 2 weeks. Or in retrospect, I'm like, I should have just stayed for a whole year before, when the pandemic first started. But I mean, that's the other benefit to it, right? And so, in thinking about the ability to purchase a home for $55,000 and it not be some little box or something, how you would, you think about $1 million in New York City and what it gets you, and then you think about where you actually physically are, the landscape here, obviously the climate, the people, all the positive upsides to being here.
The freedom.
Exactly. And then the space of actually being able to be comfortable in a home. So I definitely want to, walk in, and you can give us a breakdown of what it is that we're seeing.
I'm glad you mentioned the space because there are always trade-offs that you make in development. And obviously the driver on cost is space. So if you're looking to reduce the price of the offering, you have to make it smaller. But the question is, what are you making smaller? So what we did with this trade-off is we made sure that the rooms were still very generous.
Got it.
And what we did is we reduced the size of the actual compound that the house sits on. Right, but it feels bigger because it's kind of an open field compound for the enclave.
Yeah.
Right, so if this wall, went up 7 feet, it would cut off those views and it would feel smaller.
Yeah.
So we were able to use design to make the actual enclave feel more spacious, reduce the size of the footprint, not of the unit, but of the plot itself.
I see.
Right, but then made sure that the actual living space was very generous.
Got it.
So it's, as a developer, you're constantly thinking about trade-offs. One of the things that we're looking at as well is, okay, instead of having a gate in front of each house, let's gate 12 houses.
Makes sense. And be able to keep the 2-car driveway for each house as well.
Yeah. Same thing for some of the other community amenities, like with the water.
Yeah.
Instead of having a massive poly tank behind each house, let's have a borehole to serve a community of 12 houses and have your community water storage to provide for all 12 units.
Got it. Another thing I want to bring up, just because we can see it from this angle that I'm looking at, is I see solar panels on the roofs. Can you talk about power supply and, how solar may have shifted the game for being able to develop in new areas as well?
Absolutely. We actually passed the bulk distribution station for Pokuase, for the electricity company of Ghana. And you're looking at just massive amount of public investment. And that's not even power generation, that's just the distribution. I'll point it out as we leave.
Got it.
Right. But, you're looking at panels on a house. Now, we switched out the incandescent bulbs, actually a long time ago in Ghana, for LED lighting. Now, the kind of bulbs that we had in the house that I was born in Ohio, those were 90 watts. Right? These are 3. So the power consumption, so basically for the amount of electricity that's used to power the entire house, one bulb in Cleveland in 1987.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.
Right? So if you're using that kind of system, you don't need a huge amount of power generation to keep the lights on when the power's out. So we put in a backup solar system so that you would have electricity and your kid can finish his homework. and you don't have to fire up a generator, which is creating exhaust, and the fuel is expensive.
Right.
So those, we'll put in a backup solar power facility. What we'd like to do in subsequent developments, and maybe even retrofitting some of these,
Yeah.
is to put in a microgrid, right, which would
I see.
allow us to basically just put solar panels on all the roofs,
Yeah.
all the roof space, generate our own power, which at the end of the day is cheaper, right? Then the reason why I mentioned that massive distribution is you think about the grid. The grid is really where the action is in terms of public investment. So we're producing power. It could be a thermal plant in Tema. We've got to bring all that electricity here. And it's expensive to carry it,
Right.
where you can just see.
In a place with abundant sunlight. Right.
Exactly. It's a no-brainer,
Yeah.
right? So it's a question of, can you find a mechanism to finance the initial investment
I see.
and store the power that you're generating on site and then distributing back into the houses in the evening, right? Which is not a heavy lift technically, but it's just a question of people typically, they don't want to spend an extra $5,000 or $10,000 on their home to do that.
Right.
But they're going to pay that amount over the course of the next 10 years, right? So can we find a financing mechanisms where we're saying, okay, let's find a risk taker. You've got a captive market.
Yeah.
These houses, they're not going anywhere. They're definitely going to be consuming power, right? Can we generate and supply more constant power for 50 houses in a way that's cheaper than the national grid supply,
I see.
which I think can be done, but
Yeah.
it's just a question of getting enough houses together and then having the time to try and put the financing together.
Collective buy-in for
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in looking just at, like we said before, just at the overall landscape, no space cut off like in the construction. So we have the 2-car driveways. Obviously, you have the front lawn. Grass is green. The shaded porch.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I instantly realized when I stepped in was actually how much cooler it is on the inside. And that's not even standing in front of a fan or anything. It was just an immediate temperature change. And could you speak to that a bit more and talk about why that's the case and what went into the actual construction of these homes?
Absolutely. So there's 3 different forms of insulation that we're providing all of the homes. The first is the roof. So instead of using a metal roof, which is just going to radiate heat into the building, we're using a UPVC roof that we're importing in ourselves. So that automatically drops the temperature. The next thing we do is we put an insulation into the ceiling so that the heat transfer that you are getting from the roof is mitigated.
Got it.
Third thing we do is insulate 360 all of the walls.
Got it.
So there's actually a layer of styrofoam in all of the walls. So typically when you have a block house, it picks up a lot of heat and then radiates heat throughout the evening. So with this, it keeps it cool just like you would have, a styrofoam insulated cool box that you keep your drinks in. So that's kind of how we're managing the heat situation and insulation.
Got it. It's evident. It's one of those things where when you explain it, it sounds so simple. And I'm surprised more folks hadn't done that because there is really a noticeable difference. I've stayed in a range of places in Accra, from the university in East
Sure.
Legon when I
Yep.
first came out here, to different Airbnbs and hotels. And I will say, when I walked inside of here, I was like, okay, like, it's not an AC unit on. Like, I don't hear the fan on, but I'm like, this is different. And
Cooler. Yep.
it's more than just it being shade. And so,
Yep.
yeah, that's something that it makes a lot of sense, and it's evident in the construction. So I want to see the inside now. So so obviously no details spared in the space. 2-car driveway, insulated walls, front lawn. But now let's get to the details on the inside. So this particular unit, this is a 2-bedroom,
That's right.
1 or 2 bathrooms,
2 baths.
2 bed,
So-
2 bath.
Yes. So an ensuite bath, and it can also be extended so you can add a 3rd bedroom. You can add a master bedroom
Okay,
with time.
got it.
So what we found is that a lot of folks in real estate in Ghana, they build incrementally. People will build a house, it may take them 7, 10 years to complete, but they want to have the ability to expand the unit or finish or continue the process.
I see.
So the philosophy here is that we're going to give you a good piece of land, well-engineered site, and then you've got a basis to grow.
Got it. I feel like one of the things that I actually like a lot about just all of your units is that you actually take into account the specific market that you're serving and how people who are already here are going about their business and having these options to expand. It's no secret that a lot of people do struggle with purchasing their own land and then building their own house and the time it takes to do that. And you hear about people like, oh, I've been sending money to Accra for 10 years and I go and check on it and it's not there. And so especially for folks in the diaspora like myself who are interested in purchasing here, I feel like that's another reason that a place like this is so appealing, because you take a lot of that guesswork or a lot of that uncertainty and you say, okay, I know where I'm living. I know if I want to expand, I have the option to. And I understand that the folks who were involved in this construction took into account weather, proximity, layout options, like anything that may come along later on. So just something that I'm acknowledging, because I think a lot of times people, especially foreign investors, may come somewhere and be like, well, in California, where I'm from, this is what we like to do.
Yep.
Or
And
this is what we like.
Just slap an apartment complex from Turkey and put it in the middle of the city.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there can be demand for that, but I think in terms of long-term growth, that you have to listen to the market.
Right.
And one thing that's loud and clear is that given the fact that the mortgages are so hard to get and they're expensive, that people need basically an on-ramp onto an incremental housing product. So not only is a unit like this expandable, but we also sell it as a shell.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So a shell essentially is fully finished from the outside. So your neighbors don't even know that you bought the shell. Right? But on the inside it's raw.
Okay.
So you've got the straight walls, but there's nobody who buys a house in Ghana who's scared to install a sink.
I see.
Right? And we've, so you've got all of the hookups that you can come in and plug in.
Yeah.
You've got the PPR pipes that are embedded in the walls, but you can buy your own sink. You can buy your own tiles.
Put your own personal interior decor, whatever it may be, and have your own personal flair rather than, the options that y'all have already selected.
Sure. So instead of saving for 3 years to have the money to buy a fully finished $72,000 3-bed, you buy a 2-bed expandable at 42. Right? Because if you wait for the 3 years, that 42 is going to be 80,000. Right? Which may be difficult for you to swing.
I see.
So this gets people into the unit, gets them onto the incremental housing property ladder. And then it gives them a canvas that they can work off of.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's walk through. So
have a look around. So yeah, this is the living and dining area. We have a closed kitchen. We were thinking about, there's some people that like the open plan kitchens.
I see.
But I think just as a standard product, the closed kitchen makes sense because if you're entertaining and you've got your in-laws over, your kitchen may be a disaster. They don't necessarily need to hear and see it. So that's just kind of a cultural consideration.
Makes sense.
But the way that the house is designed, if that was something that somebody was interested in, and maybe it's just a retiree and the kids have grown, there's a bit more sanity in the house, you can open up the closed kitchen and have a different approach.
Cool. And this living space is spacious.
Yeah.
Again, I've lived both coasts, so just in thinking about even what we were paying for like a 4-bedroom in New York City and how our living space was a fraction of this. Yeah, it's just something to be considered. And so now we're in both bedrooms. So bedroom number 1.
Bedroom 1, you again from that kind of comfort perspective, you've got that cross ventilation with 2 windows on both sides, which helps.
Yeah.
And it comes with these wardrobes. I'm sure you're familiar with ash foam.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They produce our wardrobes.
Okay. Solid.
Yeah. Actually, we got all of our the furniture for the model unit from ash foam. So
okay.
these are all produced in Ghana.
Nice.
The mattresses are produced in Ghana. All of the sofas and chairs, everything's locally produced.
Also another plus.
Which I know is something that
Right.
you're
Somebody who is big on production here.
local
you know,
production.
that is
right.
music to my ears.
Absolutely.
And understanding.
So this is the shared bathroom.
Cool.
And powder room for the guests. So you've got the shower unit in there. And this is the master.
And that's the bathroom I didn't see earlier. You said 2 bathrooms because this is attached to the master.
Yeah, so you've
Got
got
it.
the shower unit kind of tucked here in the corner.
Understood.
And WC.
Double window ventilation again. And you got a view that's not to be slept on.
Yes, that's beautiful.
In so many areas in Accra, it's just, it's flat in all of the central areas in Osu, in Ridge, and cantonments. And so it's just interesting to have a vantage point. It's like here, but you also kind of had a vantage point in Ayu Mensa as well. And I know you have your getaway spot in a brewery.
Have you made it up there yet?
I haven't made it there yet. I know it's like a
we
spa
need to.
and community center type of area, but I have yet to make it up there. So
We need to do like a little fashion show.
next
or
video.
Something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a shoot.
I'm more than down.
Very cool.
I'm more than down.
Let me show you the kitchen area.
Cool.
Actually, these tiles are also produced in Ghana.
You see? I've been telling people don't sleep.
Yeah.
I'm focused on the clothes, but there's a lot of
That's a
things being
whole-
produced here. So I'm happy to hear and also be able to see and attest to
Yeah,
the
it was
actual quality.
I
of the
didn't
product.
I didn't know at the time that Ash Foam produced bespoke kitchens. I mean, I know them for their mattresses.
Same.
And then I heard that they had branched out into furniture, and I was thinking mostly just the couches and whatnot, but
Yeah.
the table, solid wood, really nice quality.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really happy with what we were able to get with them. Decent sized kitchen here. You've got the kitchen store, which is important.
The whole big, right. You got you have your 5-gallon bags of rice for your jollof,
right.
your wachi, whatever
Water,
you got
pestle to make your fufu, the whole nine. All right. The other thing, from the cultural perspective, is having at Imus Park was that the mid-terrace units, they had backyards, but you couldn't access the backyard without walking through the house.
So you have
Yeah.
the exterior side where you
Yeah.
can, if you want to do a full outside party and just do the front yard and the
Exactly,
backyard
yeah.
and something else going on inside, you can do
You've
that.
got some of the homies that are a bit rough.
You know,
Keep mass.
in LA, that's all I do. All of my furniture in California is lightly colored. I got like tan rugs, and I'm like, you know what?
Yep.
The weather is good enough, so why wouldn't we just have it outside? And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I definitely hear that.
And then you do have the space that you can convert the master bathroom into a corridor and add another master bedroom here.
Got it.
So
Got it.
we've built and some of the, actually in phase 1, phase 2 is just 2 bedrooms, expandable.
I see.
Phase 1, we did 4 3-bedrooms.
Okay. And all of them are 12 units. Well, phase 1 and phase 2 are 12 units, and phase 3 is 24.
Yeah, we got more ambitious as we as we progressed, we decided to go for the
You had
24.
the proven product already. So
Yeah,
like, why
we
not?
just went for it. But you can see phase one from here. So the ones you can see the additional third bedroom that expands
Oh, yeah.
on the back
That's
here.
clear.
But it's nice to see how the landscaping matures with
Yeah.
the climbing ficus that are growing on the walls. So we produce these locally as well. All the elements, all the concrete work that you see,
Yeah.
including the tiles. The tiles in the front of the house,
Yeah.
we produce them on site. These precast walls, we do them locally.
There's something I'm happy to be able to see as well. I was saying earlier, there's a big like taboo myth. It's just like I see land and then I see something develop. So to also be able to like capture some of the process and see the process of things happening. It's just a cool experience for me. And I hope viewers as well, so you can just understand.
Do you guys want to check out the
I want to go see.
Okay.
Let's see phase
Let's check
three.
it out. We can walk around this way.
That's going on right now. When I came in here, I was like, I wonder if this is like purposefully made this way is like water flow and drainage.
Yeah, that's right.
And so.
That's right. So you can see the houses are higher than the road. So
Right.
it goes. It's really cool to see actually, and when you've got a heavy downpour, just seeing how the whole site has been engineered. We've got a great team, not only on the design side but also in the construction.
Started off with phase one. There are 4 3-bedrooms and the other 8 are 2-bedrooms expandable. We were just in phase 2 in the 2-bedroom expandables, and now we're walking into phase 3. Obviously, currently under construction. You got ambitious, added or doubled it in size, so we went from 12 to 24. Are these all 2-bedroom expandable, or are there some 3-bedrooms? Or
So we've got 6 3-bedroom units on this site.
Cool.
We focus more on the 2 beds and most of our marketing, just because you're coming at a nice low price point.
Yeah.
But I think people do appreciate having the option to not only see what an expanded 2-bedroom looks like, but some folks just need more space. So.
Got it. And then the option to expand is like maybe families growing, right?
Yep.
A young couple, maybe some folks in the diaspora who are tired of the U.S. and are moving out, and
absolutely
add a +1 to the family somewhere down the line, whatever it may be. Here I can already see in the construction this same terrace landscape that you were talking about. So building each layer higher than the last, and also obviously the houses are at a higher level than what the street is. So that same, complex of making sure that there's a good flow and drainage in a place where you can experience some heavy downpour on any given day.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
It's definitely, again, like I was saying earlier, it kind of puts the buyer at ease knowing that the folks who were responsible for the construction actually took into account all of the different possibilities and expectations that come specific to this area and being in Ghana and being in Accra. So I'm convinced.
Well, which unit are you picking up? We need
I'm like, it's just me and my lady. So I'm like, the two bed expandable is where it makes sense for me. The drive over here really didn't take long. I mean, we left from cantonments, and I thought it was going to take like an hour for some reason, but it really didn't. We got here in about 30, which is not bad. Not bad at all.
Yeah. You could see there's like a difference in temperature.
Also true.
Closer to the mountains, you get that lovely mountain breeze that kicks through here from time to time.
Yeah, which is saving me right now because, like I said, it had been too long since I had been in Accra, and so I was struggling for a second first, but now I'm like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm settled in, and this breeze is doing us a solid. And so, in looking over here, for example, at this construction, so
Sure.
this is the roofing that you were referencing, right? So it's not metal roofing.
So this is the steel trusses,
Got it.
right? But you can see the PVC roofing sheet that goes on top.
Uh-huh.
Now that's where you're seeing the efficiencies in terms of the thermal dynamics at play.
Got it.
Because this is a UPVC sheeting, right, that provides insulation from the heat.
I see.
And we're using a light gauge steel truss system. I think we only have another 4 houses where we need to install the trusses, and then that's done.
Ooh.
You can see a bit of the polystyrene core here that's providing the insulation that you're experiencing.
So Emmanuel, I don't know if you can see this clearly, but earlier when we were speaking to the temperature change of when you're outside and when you're walking in, I was saying, obviously, you know, the sun's no longer hitting you and there's that inherent temperature change in being in shade, but it just felt different. It wasn't that interior oven feel of like I'm inside of a place that is trapping this heat and like that greenhouse effect. It was more cool. And so in understanding now, this styrofoam insulation is what is allowing for that to happen. So I'm happy we came over here because it's a concept at first, but to actually be able to see it and understand how it works, it just contextualizes everything and makes it more clear. I'm a visual person, so I'm like, it's just cool to be able to see and to be able to get an insight into this construction process too.
I'll give you a couple other benefits of this technique. One, you can see all of this steel, right? And so in traditional construction, you're centralizing all of your reinforcement in the corners of the building. And then you're using block work in the middle.
Got it.
Right, which means if there's some seismicity
Weak
and
point.
those things shift, then you have shearing forces that separate your blocks and cracks, which are structural and problematic.
Right.
And you can actually can be quite dangerous because you've got masonry falling on you in the event of an earthquake. With this, you've got steel throughout the entire fabric of the building. So to get a bit technical, concrete is very strong in compression, right? So if you stand on a concrete block, it's not going to break.
Right.
Right, but if you have a concrete rod and you try and bend it, it snaps.
Got it.
Right, whereas steel has very high tensile strength.
Got it. Flexible.
Right, yeah. So you want to. So they have the whole idea of ferro cement, where you're integrating the tensile strength of steel and the compressive strength of concrete, right? But if you're distributing it throughout the entire fabric of the building, it works as a monolithic structure.
Yeah.
So these houses are so much stronger than a regular block house
I see.
because you've got all this integrated steel working as a unit.
Got it. And then from a buyer's perspective too, for somebody who is interested in the long run, right? And it's like, okay, for me, I would be interested in purchasing here, interested in living here. Perhaps if I know I'm going to be somewhere for a year, I could rent it out long term. But when it comes to the structural integrity of a building, no matter where you are, you want to make sure that for the long-term investment, you're buying something that has structural promise over a long period of time, because as the value of the home appreciates, just how real estate does in general, you want to make sure that you won't have to do any type of reconstruction or retrofitment or whatever. Obviously, you want to minimize that to save yourself money, and so again, I guess this is just the recurring theme here, but understanding that y'all put a lot of thought into these constructions, and you have the proof and the ability to show what it is that you're talking about. It also really goes a long way. And for prospective buyers, I just want folks to keep that at the front of your mind, right? A lot of people can say what they want to say, but how many people can actually show you during construction and say, look, we're not cutting any corners here. I can walk you into the building, show it being constructed, and actually, you know.
Nothing to hide here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Get to see. Yeah, so the other thing that's nice about it is that typically when folks are building in Ghana, they're building with blocks, but then they're conduits for their electrical connections.
Yeah.
They're chiseling through the block, putting in the wiring, and then plastering over that. Whereas because we're using these panels, we're able to embed the wiring, the plumbing into the walls before we even put on the concrete. So we're using a micro concrete with fiber to increase the strength on the exterior.
Got it.
Right, so that's where you're getting your structural integrity.
Got it.
But it kind of gives you a flavor of how everything works here. The windows are also produced with, we've got a local window producer. So those are
Another.
made in Ghana. So
Made in
pleased
Ghana.
about that.
Locally produced.
Yeah, the steel trusses. There's a company called Doma. Actually, I want to put together a little demonstration day. Probably maybe the end of this month, and pull in all of our vendors. Because typically people kind of try and keep these things to themselves.
Yeah.
We did a post on LinkedIn highlighting our Made in Ghana vendors. 85,000 views.
It's a demand for it. It's like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of folks are really, really, you know, coming to terms with the need to do local production to spur economic growth here. And, you know, folks are, just awakening to the abilities of what, and the capabilities of production here as well. And so when you have somebody like yourself who, you know, has built this brand in this like short period of time too, but it really,
Here's the real brand.
you know, exactly.
You know, I mean, this is
Exactly.
what Ghana is about.
Yeah.
This is a fiercely anti-colonial, black empowerment country.
Exactly.
And so much so that we don't almost need to talk about it because it's 99.99% black.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's in the fabric of everything that we do. But it's important to state from time to time that this is about independence.
Exactly.
It's about economic empowerment. It's about being able to call your own shots.
Exactly.
So
One of the things too that I really loved about Kwame Nkrumah and listening to many of his speeches and even understanding some of the economic developments that he put in place. When he gained independence, he was very big and very deliberate about saying, we're not going to be the country that just allows folks to lower their flag, but keep full economic control over what's going on here. And so,
sounds like some subtle shade to French West Africa.
you know, and so I was just looking into all of these different productions that he had set up. So there were a lot of agricultural
Everything.
productions, there were textile mills,
Rubber.
and you know, over the time some things have shifted, but he was very deliberate in making clear that independence means full economic independence and not just absence of military presence or whatever it may be. And so it's cool to see and learn about all of these different products that are made in Ghana, from the furniture to the actual infrastructure building blocks. So, cool.
Excellent. So walk over here. There's a panel house that's in its first phase of plastering.
Cool.
It's actually a very good time for you to be here because you can literally see the house in each phase.
Yeah.
You know, you can see like these ones, their roof, the windows are in. These ones are being plastered.
I know, camera on or off, I'm like, this is enlightening.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I mean, the other thing that's nice to have a chat with somebody who's like legit interested in geeking out on like what's happening. You actually have to have intellectual curiosity to understand everything. So it's not just, you know, somebody that popped in and looking for likes on a YouTube page.
Right.
But genuinely very interested in how these things are made. So it's fun. A company called Echo Stone.
I saw this post on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I did see them.
They have the aerated concrete machine, and then the formwork, formwork, which is like the Rolls Royce of formwork out of Germany.
Gotcha.
So they did a large scale project in Nigeria. They got stuck somewhere, turned their attention to Ghana, but now they're looking to support developers and saying, listen, we've got this technology,
You got it.
and we've got the equipment, so how do we collaborate? So oftentimes when people are building with blocks, not quite straight, then you're having to put a lot of plaster on to try and smooth the surface, which gets expensive. So you're just adding more concrete, more cement to your budget. So these panels here are actually quite challenging to use. So our team has a huge amount of experience and probably the best team in the country in terms of executing the installation. Because they worked on these massive district hospital projects that were sponsored by the government to the tune of $100 million. So they know how to install the panels. We've got great teams but if you were to just buy them off the road and try and do it yourself, you would likely find it quite challenging. Whereas this approach is more idiot-proof because you've got the formwork, so all your walls are already plumb and straight.
I see.
So that's one of the benefits of the system, which isn't necessarily a huge benefit to us, but I think to the market, it's a significant
game changer.
Yeah,
got it.
We used something similar for Ayumetsu Park, but it wasn't a plastic formwork. It was a steel formwork, which is heavier to move around. This is a bit more robust, but also very expensive.
I see. This is cool though. And so, out of this comes those.
No, out of this is this. These are the panels, the styrofoam panels that you saw in the other house.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Let's go this way.
Got it. Oh no, I'm sorry. I meant out of this comes this.
This one. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Right. So when you take those out, this is what the finished product is, and
Yep.
this is what allows for the angles and everything to be
everything
correct.
to be plumb and square.
Sorry, it looked like a further point than it was.
Yep. Yep. So to pardon the noise, let's come and have a look. Now you're really getting to see how the sausage is made.
For real.
This is the real deal. Anku.
Oh wow. I'm gonna let you get in here,
Yeah.
Emmanuel.
So,
Excuse me. How you doing?
good look.
So this is the real fascination right here.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
These guys really know what they're doing.
yeah.
Masters of craft. They're giving us a very good, smooth finish on execution.
That's one of the things too that I'll say just about even in clothing production here that I've realized is because folks do this so often at such a higher volume than what we're used to seeing in the US, it's the 10,000 hours rule, really.
Yeah,
And it's
yep,
like
yep.
you've put in this much time and you've learned through trial and error and have perfected this method because you've just done it that much more than other folks. And so even with me and getting my clothes made, sometimes it's like I come in and they're like, oh, no need to take measurements, I got you.
Yep.
You make something and I'm like, of course you can do this because
Yep.
this is your,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? This is our 10,000 of doing this kind of construction. So it's cool to see. Echoes, so.
Advanced. Greater levels of complexity. So
Sure.
you're working for an architecture firm, and they're in the of a building.
I appreciate the opportunity to even come here and see all of this. Like I said, first time in Pokuase, so to be able to see this specific development, Pokuase Heights, be able to reconnect with you and see how you've expanded since starting off with IE Mensa. It is nothing short of amazing. The build quality, the space, the location, and of course, the more affordable price point is all things that I'm happy are taken into consideration. And I'm happy to be able to be here, talk to you, see it in person, and also share it with the audience, because I know a lot of folks throughout the diaspora are very eager to get back to Ghana. I know a lot of folks come over the holidays and have come for the parties and the fun, and that's sparked their curiosity and actually looking here more long term. And so I hope this video could provide some insight and a very viable option for folks who are sincerely interested in returning home and purchasing a property in Ghana. So thank you.
Trudy, thank you so much for coming through. Really appreciate the visit. And we're moved by the profound connection and reconnection that African Americans are experiencing with Ghana. And I'd say that even in this project, I've got, I think there are 2 or 3 African American sisters who've already bought into phase 3, which is, it's new for us.
Yeah.
We didn't have a huge African American uptake at Mensa Park,
Yeah.
but I think just even within the past 5 years, it's getting on people's radar. And you guys are spreading the word, because you've been here, you've experienced things, you're sharing it with folks in the wider diaspora, and it's resonating.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity. I know a lot of folks don't have it, so
Thank you, brother.
thank you.
Also, we have to make a little shout out to our Columbia connection.
We do. So I got connected to Kofi through a Columbia University alumni group, I guess.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
I went to Columbia for grad school, studying journalism, documentary film. Hope my interview skills didn't disappoint. You went to Columbia for undergrad,
That's right.
and now we're here.
Excellent. Excellent.
So Kofi, you were obviously Ghanaian, Kofi Anku, but you were actually raised in the U.S. in
Born
Ohio.
and raised in Ohio. Yeah.
So born and raised in Ohio, went to Columbia for undergrad, and then at what
Studied
point?
African American studies.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So AFM studies major
Yeah.
at Columbia, and then at what point did you say, you know what?
Actually, before I graduated, I was in Ghana. My father had already started heavily investing in real estate. I took a year off and set up a plant to produce sinks and worktops and baths in the Shire Hills.
Huh.
So
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's always been kind of the animating. We're talking about the African American story and angle, but just what this country represents for somebody who both has this kind of dual heritage as an African American and also as a Ghanaian, seeing the opportunity of having your own country where you are in the majority and the fate and the legacy that you leave to your children are essentially decided by you.
Yeah.
Right? That's an incredible space to be in, given the history of the struggle in the U.S. and that continent, to have a continent and a country where we control the economy, we control the politics. Everything isn't rosy here. There are challenges,
Of course.
but I think that we're positioned, particularly as a global Black diaspora, to engage and solve these problems.
Understood. One of the things that I just wanted to build upon from there, right, is specifically in the U.S., we understand a lot of the day-to-day issues that African American people face there, whether it be police brutality, whether it be gun violence, redlining, like all of these historic inequities and racial prejudice and racial oppressions that exist, and then coming here and actually being in the majority, like you said, which is a feeling that I had never got to experience. Like it's crazy to even hear myself saying out loud, but it's like, oh yeah, like if you've lived all your time in the U.S., you've never felt what it feels like to walk outside and everybody
It's wild.
like you.
Yep, it's wild.
To be in a country where safety is just not something that you even think about in that way, right? It's like
It's taken for granted.
It is.
You're coming from the States, 30,000 handgun deaths annually.
and out here it's like I can stay out.
That's literally, I think the figures from Vietnam War were like 55,000 American fatalities.
That's what I wrote my senior thesis about, actually. The
See.
war metaphor and war on drugs and the
Yeah.
Chirac metaphor, all of these uses of the word war in American society versus actual deaths in world wars
Sure.
that have been fought. But yeah, it's like to be able to go out and be like, okay, nothing's going to happen tonight. Nobody's getting shot. Everybody's going to go home safely,
Sure.
stay up till the sun comes up, and go right to breakfast if you want, whatever it may be. Like, and that being something that you're so accustomed to always having this ominous threat of violence popping off at any moment. And then
Sure.
you hear, and after a certain amount of time, you look up and you're like, wait a minute. That's why I'm like more calming. There's not this
Yeah,
lingering feeling in the
it's
background.
wild. It's it's not just an African American issue.
Right.
There's not a community in the United States that hasn't been affected with mass shootings,
Yeah.
with school shootings, and at some threat level, and it feels it's palpably different.
Exactly.
You know,
We're talking about a country in and being in the U.S. that has more guns than people.
yeah,
I was fortunate enough in undergrad to take a class called Guns in the United States, and a lot of those figures are just alarming. And it's like, wait a minute, because we're so accustomed to it and this is all we know, we've come to accept it, and it's not until you have the opportunity to experience something else where you
people living
realize
in a different way. Yep.
this isn't normal, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be my normal. I actually have a choice to be able to come to Pokuase Heights
Yep.
and get a house and be able to, you
Why
know?
not? Yeah. And I think the other thing that I wanted to just mention
Yeah.
before we wrap up is that as a financial asset, these houses built with cash and are being purchased with cash. So folks have looked at some of the prices in Accra and they ask me like, oh, well, when is the Accra bubble going to burst? I've been waiting for this bubble to burst for 20 years. But because it's not geared up with finance, it's real. It's real cash on the purchasing side and real cash on the development side. Right? So when you see markets that pop and real estate bubbles that explode, it's because they're all geared up with finance. So in a place like Ghana, you're seeing the driver being actual growth in the economy. This isn't people just playing around with financial assets
Right.
and posting a profit which doesn't exist anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's genuinely here. You're seeing real development. You're
Yeah.
seeing real population growth, right? That Europe is not experiencing, Asia is not experiencing. This is
Yeah.
unique to Africa, the youthful population. So once you start crowding people in the city, and this is what we experienced in North America in the 1800s, where millions of people and the populations grew and those cities had those booms.
Yeah.
Asia more recently, but we're in the middle of it in Ghana.
Yeah.
So there are people that kind of missed the boat on East Legon 15 years ago.
Right.
You can get in now and experience the same kind of appreciation with a similar investment into the future.
Understood. One question now, I know we'll be here forever, but just for a clarification for folks who may not have a full understanding of what the financialization of a market means, right? What Kofi is saying is that in the U.S., even if you look, for example, at the stock market, the financialization is like the worth of the stocks based on what people buy in at is higher than the actual goods produced by the company. So then you have this inflated value where it's like, how is the worth and the financialization of the stocks worth more than the actual products that the company sells?
Sure.
And that's how you get that inequity. But when you're dealing with a place like Ghana, or you're saying, taking it specifically to real estate here, where everything is cash value, so it's not about the finance rates, and it's not about the stock market prices or these fluctuating values. It's like the price is the price, and it was purchased with cash. That's it. That's how you know what the real inherent value there is.
Exactly.
more or less.
It's not the commercial banks that are making up this money out of thin air based on an overpriced asset. Right? And you're seeing it it manifests in different ways. Right? So you saw a huge amount of money going into startups. Where did they spend that money? 40% of every VC dollar was spent on Amazon, Facebook, or Google, right? So now you're spending billions on ads, right? So if Amazon is spending billions on ads on Facebook and Facebook is spending billions on ads, is there anything that's actually happening?
Right.
Right? London is a great example. You go to see some of these houses, they were built 100 years ago. As a construction guy, I'm looking at the house and I'm saying, well, that house probably cost $35,000 to build. They're telling me it's valued at 1.5 million. Well, it wasn't 20 years ago. It's in a country that's deindustrialized. Where is the economic base of over the last 20 years? Well, they're just financializing their economy. They're revaluing the asset and lending against it and netting it to zero. Right? So you end up with trillions of dollars on paper in your economy, but nothing real to show for it.
Right.
Whereas in an economy like Ghana, they're hard assets. This isn't paper that the bank is holding. There's the house.
Yeah. Important conversations to have and just to understand more widely about economics, about worth, and about where you choose to put your money in and what assets are actually worth. There's a lot going on right now, specifically in the US. We're seeing some bank runs. We're seeing the Fed have to step in to try and mitigate major bank runs on more of the smaller banks that, again, have overvalued real estate, and folks are coming to realize that that value actually isn't there, and a range of things happening. And so, again, this is just greater context to understand the worth of your investment here, and understand that this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? As infrastructure improves, as new roads and new interchanges get built other areas, the opportunity to grow and expand is gonna continue to be present. And again, 60% of the world's working population is gonna be in Africa in the next 50 years on the continent. And so a lot of places and a lot of individuals and countries and people who have the foresight and understanding to actually see the writing on the wall and interpret what that means are getting it. And all I can say is don't be the person that misses out and undervalues that.
Absolutely.
Kofi Anku.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming through.
Right on.